everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our show today, and we're looking back at the Westmeath game last weekend and looking forward to the Tyrone game coming up this Saturday as well. I'm delighted to be joined by Kernan, and he's going to go through both games and review the Westmeath game and preview the Tyrone game. And we'll also hear from Stephen O'Neill coming up, and he's going to preview the Tyrone game coming up in Armagh on Saturday evening. Aaron, great to have you on, and we'll start with the Westmeath game. And I know a lot of people were disappointed by the performance, but positives, it was good to get a win and get the All-Ireland series kick-started with 2 points.
Yeah, it was. Like, to be honest with you, too many times this past number of years we've played well and lost. So yeah, initially, while you're hoping, for a great reaction to come after the Ulster final and kick off this All-Ireland series sort of with a bang, knowing you have a home game, thinking you're playing against Westmeath and this is one that we're going to pick up the 2 points. I think if you add all that there stuff together, it was always a game I wasn't worried that I thought we were going to lose it until the day itself. It wasn't looking great. But yeah, it was a game I never really feared going into, and that's a dangerous position if you're a player, because again, like going to the game, you're trying to put yourself in a player's situation, and with the best will in the world, the Ulster final was hugely deflating. Like, we did speak about it after the game and the review of it. Like, it was a massive opportunity for this group to pick up meaningful silverware and an Ulster medal that some of those boys have given a lifetime of service to try and get. So that is really hard to pick yourself back up for in general terms. Then you throw into it as well, there's so much goes into you're going well in the provincial series and the crowds and the buzz that's coming with it. And if you're going into Clonus as a player and if your Garda escorts, the sunshine, streets packed, like that gets you going. That's what gets your adrenaline going. Like, you're absolutely buzzing. The atmosphere, the game, how the game went, the penalties, the whole thing. Like that's so hard to replicate that. But it's what sticks in your mind then as a player, and that was a fear I had going into the weekend as well. Well, it ended up whatever it was, about 11,000 at the game. I was expecting maybe another 2,000 or 3,000 from ourselves there, but even myself going into the game, like I was there about 45 minutes before the game started, and you could drive straight into the car park out the back of the ground. So if you're a player, they're driving in maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes before that. That gives you the feel of a league game. It's not a championship game. This is not good. It's a new series for everyone in terms of, like, even if you've lost a provincial game in general terms, you went into a qualifiers and it was all over in that day if you didn't win. Now you don't have that same cutthroat experience. So that was always going to make it difficult for players to get up for it. Having said that, I thought we started rightly. I thought we created some good opportunities. We just didn't take them. Some uncharacteristic misses from ourselves. Particular, thought we showed a bit of intent in terms of Rain at whatever it was, a 25-meter tap over free kick straight in front of goals. But he makes eye contact, quick 1-2 straight through, and everyone in the ground just thought the ball was in the back of the net. Not like him to miss. We missed another few opportunities, or maybe dropped some short. And next thing, Westmeath punished us, get a goal at the other end of the field, and you could just literally see the body language of them lifting. They felt they're in a game. They used the elements well, and that was it. It was game on from then, and we were basically flat throughout the rest of it. So it mentally, it was a difficult game to prepare for. No matter what management do, say, what scenarios they throw at you. To put a player's hat on, it is just difficult to be at the same pitch all the time. And you just have to give credit to Westmeath to say that they were up for it, tactically so well set up, got their matchups well, caused us huge trouble from kickouts at certain stages, keeping possession at certain stages. And you would have to say that the best players on the field on the day, the vast majority of them came from their side. But thankfully from us, we picked up the 2 points and went home with a win.
And that Ulster final hangover, Aaron, is that, now that they've got a game under their belts, is that sort of gone now? How long does it take you to get away from that? Or maybe if you had been playing Galway or Tyrone and you know that it's a bigger test, it's a better team, maybe that hangover wouldn't have lasted as long. But as you were saying, the Westmeath game, they brought no or very little support. It's
It's gone, absolutely gone, and that's without sounding disrespect or maybe patronising to Westmeath. Like I said, you have to give them all the credit for what they did the other day. They were definitely the better team. But yeah, had it been Galway or Tyrone day one, it would have focused the minds that bit more from a playing perspective. But yeah, in terms of that, those friends done and dusted now. It's long in the memory. We've had another game. There wasn't a huge pile that went right. There was plenty that went wrong, but plenty that can be fixed. Like it's not rocket science, where we need to get better at. But yeah, that's it parked, and like what an opportunity now to head to Omagh. To come up against Tyrone this weekend. There's no doubt about it. Like management would have had plenty of harsh words to come back with players. And do you know what? More importantly, the players themselves, they would have been disappointed in their own performance. They would have been disappointed in the mistakes that they made, how off it they were. But for me, it's always brilliant that you have the opportunity to redeem yourself and go again. You're not sitting waiting weeks on it. You recover as quickly as you can, refocus, and get yourself prepared. So players that sit there and watch the game and analyse themselves, and they know best what they can get better at, where they made mistakes that cost us scores or messed up opportunities whenever we had possession. And I always thought it was brilliant whenever you had the opportunity to just go and change it again, because you not make the same mistakes twice, or if you do, you end up sitting on the bench beside Geezer, and that's just the way it is.
I suppose the Westmeath goal, and it was a wee bit like the Ulster final. It just gave them that wee bit of breathing space, and it left Armagh had to chase the whole time. And they obviously, in the second half, they kept the ball for long periods, which as a supporter or as a fan trying to watch on, it's very frustrating watching that. But I'm sure Desi Dolan was over the moon that they were fit to do that and hold the ball for long periods. But it's frustrating to watch, isn't it? That back and forth, and knowing that I think Armagh were 3 points down for most of it, and just knowing that you have to come out and chase it, and if you do come out, there's going to be pockets that Westmeath can exploit, and it's frustrating to watch on, isn't it?
It is, and to be fair, like Westmeath throughout got their homework right, and at half time, well, just looking how they played, I can imagine what they spoke about at half time, and the players were out and implementing. Like they were 3 points up, so it's up to us to go after them. And that's what they were doing. They were just trying to draw you out. They were playing possession. And do you know what? As boring as it is and frustrating as it is, there is a skill in that, where players don't panic. They don't run down blind alleys. They don't get caught in contact, get swarmed and hit on the break. So they were super at it. And in particular, who were outside the 45, maintained a lot of possession. It was Sam McCartan at 10 and Ronan O'Toole at 11. Caused us serious trouble the whole day. We found it so hard to clamp them down at all. So they were really good at it. And why would they start forcing it? Because they were going against the wind, so it was hard to go with a long ball, because it was going to hang in the air that bit more. It's a defender's ball. And on top of that, they were in the lead, they were in control. So it would be stupid of them to start forcing things. It was up to them to try and pull us into situations that we didn't want to be in, and then pick holes and probe it ourselves. From an Armagh perspective, there were times that I understand what you're saying in terms of you can leave yourself exposed, but there were times where we had our +1, where we had left them with an extra man nearly back at their goalkeeper, so we had protection for the long ball in, but we were way too passive and had too many numbers inside our 45, and that allowed them to go from side to side to retain possession. I felt we sat too deep. I felt that we didn't get the same pressure on them that we needed to try and turn it around. Like I think it was even maybe 11, 12 minutes in the second half, and we still hadn't closed the 3 points down. And at that stage, then, even myself, you're starting to worry a wee bit. You're like, Jesus, time's just ticking on here. The period of time that we have to try and start clawing this lead back, it's getting less and less. And then that's whenever, the crowd start to get anxious, players themselves get anxious, they start maybe taking a few risks. I thought we started pumping a few aimless balls in that we had no chance of winning. And again, that feeds into Westmeath, that they sort of sense that from ourselves, that bit of eagerness and frustration. So I did think that there definitely were times, in particular, John Hesselin kicks a point off his left foot on the stand side, but he's just at the edge of the D. And the whole build up to that, from memory, if I was looking at it on camera, we had 3, maybe 4 players at times inside our 45, going from side to side along the D. And their number 7 broke in at one stage and could have kicked the ball over the bar. Only he didn't have the confidence to do it. Every time he ran in with the ball, he never shot until late on, and he did put it over the bar. But in that instant, he didn't take on with it. He popped it to the right hand side. Someone gave it to John Hesselin, and he just tapped it straight over the bar. And we had more than enough numbers around him that, that's something that Kieran McKeever, particularly in defence, like he wouldn't be happy with the boys for just being so passive, and you're just passing people on. You're not making contact. You're not asking any questions of them. You're not turning them back. We're just letting them sort of do what they wanted. And for me, that was a big score that Hesselin kicked in, because you're like, Jesus, it was hard work for us getting scores the other end, even with the wind and that there, because they were getting men back in numbers, and it was making it a really, really frustrating afternoon for everyone.
I think you mentioned it was 11 or 12 minutes. I think it was actually 14 minutes at the start of the second half till there was a score. I think Andrew Mernon got a point, and then every time Armagh got a point or got 2 in a row, Westmeath would come straight down and get a score. So it was always there was just always that wee bit of a gap, whether it was a point or 2 or 3 at times. It took Armagh all the head to really close that gap, and eventually the goal got them in front. The goal came in the 68th minute, and it was the first time Armagh led since the 4th minute of the first half. So it was a long time that Armagh trailed.
It was, and throughout that, as you're a player, the goal early on, he says, well work from them. You're still thinking, right, we know what we're about. There's enough experience in that their team. We'll pick them off. We'll claw them back, the way that we want to. The longer the game goes on, then, you can be as experienced as you want, but you do start getting anxious. Like, remember, this is a game that everyone thinks we're going to win by 5 or 6 points. Like I said, the crowd themselves, you could just feel there was a nervous energy around everyone, particularly over the shed side where I was, because they were thinking, right, we'll claw them back at some stage here, and everyone was starting to look at the clock. You're looking at the big screen, going, it's just not going the way we had hoped. But to be fair, I think someone wrote in Irish News a couple of weeks ago about, Geezer having nothing but bad luck. So I think he was entitled to a bit of good luck the other day. It wasn't something that was well worked. It was an uncharacteristic skate shot from Rian. You very, very rarely see him ever dropping one short. But to be fair, as soon as it left his boot, for me, the few pauses is that Mernon was at the back post, but he makes a dart straight away. He knows what he's doing. He was coming to leap and collect himself, but comes with real purpose and intent, and the defenders are backing onto it, where he's coming hard at us, trying to read the flight of it. But then Connor Turbot sums it up for me. Again, he doesn't stand out. He doesn't ball watch. He doesn't think, Jesus, Rain's after skying one here. He was straight after, following the flight of it, that if something does happen, if Andrew catches it, it's a quick offload to him, or if it breaks, I'm going to be in the right place at the right time. Just real poacher's instinct, scoring instinct from him. And he ends up right place, right time, such composure, just to tap it home as if you're kicking about before training even starts. And yeah, what a finish. And badly bloody needed at that stage. But even then, it wasn't over then. I thought, right, you're a couple of points up, that's it, we'd see it out. And the sweat continued until the very last minute. And like, whenever they got the last score to put 1 in it, you were just sort of thinking, Jesus, here we go again. Derry had put the squeeze in us the last couple of kickouts whenever we were 2 up. But to be fair, the other day, and again, this for me is a positive. Well, I'm going to assume it's a positive because you're trying to read the situation. Derry, them last 2 kickouts, we still went with the spine up the middle and tried to bunch and break out into space. I'm fairly sure that it was spoken about in the review that if this ever happens to us again, we're coming down the stretch and we need one more kickout, completely overload one side of the field. And if we do not win the ball cleanly and get a mark, car crash. just hit anything that moves, dive in a break ball, do what you have to. And again, we probably just got a wee bit of luck, but we had enough people in the right place whenever we needed them to pick up that there break ball. We had everybody basically over underneath the stand side. It was contested hay in the air, broke from memory. I think it ends up, it bounces over a couple of people and into Rory's hand, and we're heading in the right direction. Gets the ball to Ray and time's up. Had Westmeath have won that ball, you can guarantee that's a bloody draw game. We're scrambling back. They're keeping possession. They can either work a score or they'll be bloody cute enough to draw a free kick out of someone because you're under real pressure. So again, you have to imagine that that's something that we took in terms of a learning from the Ulster final. And whenever we just needed one kick out to get us across the lane, we had enough people in the right place to do that there. So again, it's only a small thing, but hugely positive in terms of just taking something away from the Ulster final that we worked on, and then it got us the win that we needed the other day.
And I suppose at that end, the last 10 or 15 minutes, Armagh, there was a few players really stood up, and I know after the game, Geezer said that Rain put Armagh on his back and carried them over the line. There was the rain, there was Andrew Murnan kicked 3 points in that second half. Turbo's goal, Kieran Mackin stood up and really, I think he assisted and scored the last 2 points. There was real leaders across the field once everything wasn't going right, and maybe on another day it was easy to lie down and just accept that it wasn't your day, but there was a few players really stood up for Armagh and just dragged them over the line in the end.
Andrew in particular for me, I thought he was excellent, ended up with 3 points from play, obviously was in the right place at the right time and to help create the goal opportunity. So I thought he was absolutely massive. Ray, and again, he is what he is. He never shirks responsibility, and it's particularly whenever the pressure comes on. He puts himself the right place, the right time. And again, the other day, it was pleasing that he ended up ahead of the ball a huge amount. Probably never got as much played through him as management would have liked, but it was still great to see him in those areas that if that sort of develops over the next few weeks, he's so hard to handle in those areas because you're always scrambling to try and keep him quiet. But Kieran Mackin and Ross McQuillan, actually, whenever he come on, I thought a few times, again, similar to what I'm saying about Conor Turbitt in terms of being one step ahead and getting to where he knew he needed to be for that goal chance. I think there was a few times where I can remember Kieran and Ross in particular where we got a turnover, we were breaking out and they weren't part of the play or weren't part of the turnover or whatever it was, but they're looking ahead, they're seeing open ground and they're just flying either side or wherever the ball carrier is. It's giving them options. But what it's also doing is it has the Westmeath defenders, they're scrambling. They don't know who to go to. They don't know whether to go to the ball carrier. They don't know whether I need to track these men. So if only one of them goes, it's not the same panic. The fact that the two of them are going and they're going flat out, it just doesn't give you time to communicate properly in terms of organising that there. It gives the man and the ball options on either side of them. It has the defenders not knowing, am I taking the ball carrier? Am I taking the runners on either side? Is he looking to draw me in and pop a ball over the top and then there's a goal chance coming off it? Do we give away a point? Do we give away a goal? All this stuff scrambling through your head as you're the covering defender trying to come across there. So again, from those boys to just not sit back and go, Jesus, that's great. You know what? We've got a turnover here. Let's take a breather. It's nothing to do with me anymore. It was up the field and given options, given energy. The crowd then start feeding off it. So just small things like that there were very, very important the other day because it just gave us that bit of drive that we didn't seem to have for the vast majority of the game.
And 2 points on 2 points was the main thing. Come away with a win. It's going to be a bigger test now this week, obviously heading to Armagh for Tyrone, and they're needing to win basically because if Armagh happen to win, Tyrone's heading to that last game against, I think they have Westmeath in a neutral venue, and it's all on the line between them two. So Tyrone are going to need to pick up points. So you'd imagine Armagh are going to need a better performance, and it's going to be really do or die here in Armagh.
For me, I wouldn't be worrying about a Galway game or whatever. This is massive. This is championship football now coming this weekend. It is like there's no mistaking it. You run into Armagh, it's going to be really difficult. They were all Ireland champions 2 years ago. They have so many good players, but if I'm putting on my player's hat and I'm sitting on that bus going at the weekend, I'm not fairing them in one bit. They've beaten Tyrone in their last 5, or they've beaten Fermanagh in their last 5 championship games. And they beat by Derry last year, and everyone was like, that's it, they're going to regroup. That's not the end of their season. They'll be ready for the qualifiers. We dealt with them quite convincingly in the qualifiers this year. While they played well against Monaghan, they were expected to win. They were at home and they didn't win. And then same thing, they've time to regroup, get everything together. They know club football, they'll be ready for the first round All-Ireland qualifiers. They lose again. So from an Armagh perspective, that's the way we need to be going. Yes, treat them with utmost respect. They're All-Ireland champions 2 years ago. They have all-stars. They're players with huge experience. That's grand, but so do we. And this is a massive game for ourselves. There'll be a huge crowd. Obviously, there is summer feel the way things are going at the minute, weather-wise, and it is, it's hot enough because you're placing where you end up here. Like, I know, right, to beat Westmeath, and it's probably a strong possibility you're going to make at least a preliminary quarterfinal. But you want to be top in your group. You want time off. You want that week's break if possible. If you don't get that there, you want to be coming second. So if the worst you end up preliminary quarterfinal, you want whatever advantage going, which is the home advantage. So for me, that is the brilliant thing about how the GA have gone around creating this All-Ireland series, that there's something riding on every game, regardless of where you are or what's happening. So for me, I just think it's massive this weekend that we get the win, and you're practically giving yourself the guarantee that in a worst case scenario from a Galway game, you're in a preliminary quarterfinal, but you're in a home one at that, which is a great advantage to have, because if you're sitting in third place, there's that opportunity that somebody's heading to Killarney, and somebody's heading to Killarney probably for a hiding because they're smarting over what's happened then. So yeah, it's a huge game, but brilliant game to look forward to from a player's perspective. Like, for me, I always felt like there's nothing better than going. These are the games where you get remembered. These are the games where you earn your respect, where people go, do you know what? He stood up at the big day and was counted. And this is the big day. Big day's arrived again. Stand up, be counted. This is what Everton's about, like, in terms of championship football, where you create a proper name for yourself as an inter-county footballer. So absolutely brilliant week ahead for the players to prepare for.
I think one of them days, Aaron, was 2014 against Tyrone and Armagh in the qualifiers, and we're going to hear from Stephen O'Neill shortly. I think that was his and a couple of other players' last game in a Tyrone jersey, and Armagh probably, I can't remember, what was it? Would it have been unexpected? Obviously, going to Armagh against Tyrone would have been a big challenge, but would Armagh have been big underdogs at that stage?
We definitely would have been. Yeah, we probably would have been big enough underdogs, to be fair. Like, they were still competing in around Ulster Series, getting to your All-Ireland quarterfinals, semi-finals. I think, if memory serves me, they might have been in maybe even a league final a few years previous, ran Dublin very closely as well. So yeah, they would have been red hot favourites. Sean Cavan was still playing for them. I remember Conor Gormley maybe come on. Matty Donny was having a super year for them at that stage. So yeah, they would have been favourites. Monaghan had actually beat them in the first round of the championship that year as well, I think. And then we lost to Monaghan after a replay. And then that was the next draw, was we were heading to Armagh to play them. And yeah, it was an upset, surely. But like, you can look as far back then as you want. If you're looking for some sort of chink, you can look to Monaghan, whatever it was, 6 weeks ago. You can look to Derry going in and beating them there last year. So you can look wherever you want. I'd be looking within. It's to me, it's how the boys prepare this week, obviously individually, and you have to have just that genuine belief about yourself this week that you're going to perform regardless of who comes up against it. Because there's good players going to be marking our best players and our defenders. You're going to come up against good forwards, but sure, that's what it is. We're in the All-Ireland series. You're dealing with the best players in the country here. It's never going to be any other way. So that's a brilliant challenge to look forward to.
Yeah, and some of them matchups and some of the forwards on both sides, we're touching that with Stephen O'Neill. So we'll hear from Stephen O'Neill now. He's going to talk us through the Armagh and Tyrone game coming up on Saturday evening. Aaron, great to hear you on and get your thoughts, and I appreciate you coming on again. Thank you.
No problem at all, Sean. Talk to you soon.
We're looking ahead to the Armagh and Tyrone game coming up this Saturday evening in Armagh. I'm delighted to be joined by Tyrone legend Stephen O'Neill, and we're going to look forward to the game. Stephen, we're just after witnessing Tyrone and Armagh Masters going at it there in the second round of the Masters Championship. There's still a bit of bite to Armagh and Tyrone, isn't there?
Oh, there definitely is a bit of bite, like, and I think it's just two great competitive counties, and they always give it their best, and it was an enjoyable game, and it's played in the right spirit, but it's competitive, and that's the way you want it.
And you played in there, Stevie, where obviously the rivalry was at its height, and the teams today, Armagh and Tyrone, both Division 1 teams. Unfortunately, Armagh were relegated this year, but is there a feeling that maybe it's getting back to that stage again, that both teams are sort of coming to being All-Ireland contenders again?
Well, I think so. I think that'll always be there with Armagh and Tyrone. There's the closeness, and you always have that neighbourly rivalry against them, and the two teams are very, very competitive. They love their GA. You only have to look at the amount that people come out here today opening the Touch Cormac here, and they're well supported, and no matter what level they are. So that rivalry will always be there, and it's great to see. It's a healthy rivalry, and it's great for the GA and Ulster GA in particular.
And the two teams are so close at the minute, aren't they? We're seeing it the last day in Omagh, the last round of the league. I think it was 18-16 it finished, but it was nip and tuck the whole way through.
No, like Armagh are developing, and they're a really fine team. They were. You look at them last year; they were so lucky against Galway, and then lucky against Derry. Keane McGeady and Kieran McKeever and Kieran Dunne and great work with them, and developing them, and taking them from maybe a Division 3 team right up now to challenging for honours again, and that's where Armagh want to be. So I'm expecting a real tough game next Saturday. I think Tyrone were quite impressive against Galway, even with them with 14 men. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes now next week.
And is it to the stage nearly it's must win for Tyrone, because you don't have going in that last game against Westmeath? Need no win, you'd be more comfortable if you could get a win next week.
I know, Armagh won the day by that point. It definitely makes next games a bit more of a need for Tyrone to get the result. You definitely don't want to get into that last game. Westmeath, they're a tricky side. Some good players. John Heslin up front is a top class forward, and if you take your eye at the ball 1 minute down there, it could turn out to be a very tricky tie for Tyrone. So listen, Tyrone have home advantage. We'll be hoping and hopefully expecting a good performance, especially after we can take heart from the last day against Galway, and hopefully we can build on that.
On this All-Ireland series, Stevie, home advantage is key, isn't it? Like, it's a big thing when you get three games. You sort of have to win your home one.
You do, aye, and I suppose every team wants to turn their home pitch into a fortress, and that's one thing Tyrone maybe hasn't done so well over the last few years. But we're hoping to make a start in that next week.
And the game against Galway, it's hard to judge Tyrone really, because the red card, it sort of ruined the game. They were never fit to sort of catch that up.
No, they're always 3 points down, difficult weather conditions too. So, the thing that most Tyrone people were taking as positive was just the doggedness of Tyrone that day. They never give in, and especially when we went black carded as well, we could really capitulate it then. But we stuck at it, and we only conceded 2 points there. And we kept going to the very end, and I think that's all that any supporter wants. They want to see the team trying hard, and I feel now we're hopefully with 15 men the next day we can string on a few more good performances and hopefully progress.
And they sort of do have a point to prove, Stevie, don't they? Because it seems everything's sort of negative in Tyrone since they won All-Ireland, why he's leaving, and it just hasn't been going for them. A couple of championship defeats as well, so it seems like they have a point to prove, and their backs are against the wall now.
I know, and listen, I think it's a good place for Tyrone people to be. They always come out fighting and trying to put on performance. So, listen, the players that are there, they're good lads, and they'll put on a shift. And I think whenever Tyrone have that wee chip in the block or on the shoulder, it always helps them. So, hopefully they can use that and motivate them for next week.
And Armagh, obviously, we'd seen against Westmeath, they come through by a point, but there's maybe still a bit of almost a final defeat hangover there that just...
There's bound to be. There's bound to be. You've been pushed so close to the wire, having it within your grasp, and then just to lose it in that last, going to penalties. I think they were 2 points up with a few minutes to play, and they'll be so disappointed with themselves because they put in so much work over 5, 6, 7 years to get to that level. So there definitely wouldn't be a hangover for that. But I'm sure their management team will be delighted. They got the win the day against tough opposition, and they'll be looking forward then to try and get two next week.
And how important is that they've now got a game out of the road, and they've got, most importantly, a win that it's sort of out of their system now. They've got back up and running again, and they can sort of target Tyrone again.
I know. I think it's very important. Like, I remember losing Ulster final to Armagh in 05, and you know I think we had Monaghan next, and Monaghan really got a 1-5 lead on us, and we were just not at the races, and I suppose it was a bit of a hangover too, and luckily we scraped through that day. So you know, they'll be delighted to get the wagon back in the road again, and it's a good result. Remember that point against Westmeath. Westmeath are definitely not a bad side, so it bodes well for next week's game.
On both forward lines, Stevie, as a forward yourself, you're probably impressed with both forward lines. There's a lot of big names in Tyrone. We've obviously the likes of Darragh Canavan, Darren McCurry, we've Rian O'Neill in Armagh, Stephen Campbell, Conor Herbert come on against Westmeath and got the goal.
Yeah.
It could be a real shootout. The league game was a good game. It was 18-16.
It was really open, yeah. It was a bit cagey at the start of the league game. I was on it, and it really opened up into a great game. So no, there's top class forwards. I would like to see Rian O'Neill maybe stay a wee bit deeper inside. I feel like he's a real threat in there, and it would be good to see him maybe being used a wee bit more in there. I sort of think it reminds me a wee bit of Michael Murphy, where he's such a good player, and you're looking at him to play all these different positions. But I feel when you have somebody who's big, strong, powerful, and quick, it would be nice to see him on closer to goal. But they could try that maybe after next week.
if he plays inside, Steve, is it Paddy Hampsey? Is he the man that has to curtail him?
I will think so, but like Paddy, you know, he's a top class player, and I think the job he did in Comer last week was exceptional. Like, Damien Comer, to me, is one of the top class forwards in Ireland, and big, strong, powerful man, and it's just right up Paddy's street. You know, he loves the physical challenge, and you know, he's been Tyrone's best man marker for a number of years, you know, and I would imagine that they'll use him to curtail one of Armagh's key influences. And
we spoke about the forward line, and I mentioned Darragh Canavan. There's two Canavans, obviously. Rory Canavan's coming through. I'm not sure if he's ready to fully make the breakthrough yet, but there's such potential with him and Darragh, still very young as well.
You hear stories about how good they are, and Darragh Canavan's really coming under his own this year. He's been one of our standout players. I think his vision's second to none, and his range of passing's top class. So to have a player like that, and then the younger boy Rory coming through, who's just a real sharpshooter, it bodes well for us. But you know, Darren McCurry is back, I think, to his best as well. He looks so sharp, and he worked so hard the last day. So you know, Tyrone have options, and it should be a good game.
And Stevie, we've spoke a bit about both teams and how the game could fare out. How do you see it going? Who do you see coming out on top?
So
definitely.
I think after the Galway game, I think there's that wee bit of doggedness in them, and I hope the Ulster final hangover carries on for another week.
Well, hopefully it doesn't, and hopefully Armagh can get a second win. That's on Saturday night. It's in Omagh at 7 o'clock, and it's live on RTE. We'll obviously be covering the game with match reports, previews, and podcasts as usual. So make sure to tune in on YouTube if that's where you get your podcast, or on Spotify. Stevie, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.